Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Westward webinar series, the Masterclass on Blue Ocean Shift. I hope you have a great session again. And this was a two-part series. And the first one was on the 6th of June. I hope all of you attended the first part. In case you missed the first part and you're only attending the second one, let me also brief you on what we had on the first session. We were introducing, going back to the basics, ABCs to navigate the rough seas. That was the topic presented by Dr. Raj Kumar, who is the CEO of UCSI Consulting Group, Malaysia. And the A of ABC was discussed in the first part, and you'll surely get to know what the B and C's are. And I hope you enjoy the second part. For a quick recap on what we had last time, we're going to follow the same format. The first half an hour will be the insights provided by Dr. Raj Kumar, and then we'll have a Q&A. Please make sure not to miss your questions. Post all your questions on the Q&A section. We may miss if you post it on the public chat forum, and we'll also try our best to take all your questions, but we did exceed the time last time because we were flooded with questions. Yes, it's good to see a lot of questions, but unfortunately we will prioritize them because of the time constraints. So we'll have 30 minutes after Dr. Raj Kumar presents to take your questions in, make sure all of them are relevant, and you get the best out of it. Now, to quickly, for those, if there are any participants who are attending the second part series only and you missed the first one, Dr. Raj Kumar, he's the CEO of the UCSI Consulting Group, which is based in Malaysia. We have been partnering with them. Westward University College has been partnering with them for the last 6 years. We have taken up a lot of joint consulting and work and conducted workshops in this region. UCSI, under the leadership of the consulting group, under the leadership of Dr. Raj Kumar, they've been working with across the globe in North America, Africa, Asia Pacific region, and of course the Middle East and Africa region. He's been working with organizations, companies with as small as with less than 50 employees and as big as multi-billion-dollar conglomerates around the globe, and he's been interacting with participants with over 25 countries in the last decade. And the consulting group focuses on, of course, on blue ocean strategy. He's an expert, certified, and an expert in the domain. And the consulting group focuses on strategy, innovation, and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all enjoy this second part series of the masterclass. Do, as I said earlier, do post your questions on the Q&A session. And let me, on behalf of Westward University College, welcome you all and welcome our speaker, Dr. Raj Kumar, for this second part series of the Blue Ocean Strategy Workshop. Welcome to you, Dr. Raj Kumar.
Thank you very much, Zawahir. It's a real pleasure to be here. And thank you once again to Westward for your kind hospitality. And I just want to make sure that you can, maybe you could just give me say a hi, or, if you can hear me clearly, I think that'd be great. Just give me an indication. All right. So you can hear me well, yeah? All right, fantastic. So now, once again, I just want to thank Westward, and it's a real pleasure to be here. And we had a fantastic session last week. And thank you very much for all your kind feedbacks and adding me on LinkedIn and dropping notes and so on and so forth. So it's a real pleasure to be here. So I just want to do a very quick poll to kick things off. I want to know how many of you were here in the previous session for part 1, and just a show of hands, and how many of you were not here. So just a quick poll here. So very good. We have over 83% of people from who attended part 1, from part 1 here, and now you're at part 2. So only 80-20. So not too bad. So it's good that all of you came back, because I'm sure you either came back for the content or you came back to ask your question again. Because last week we had, as what Zawi mentioned, we had a fantastic last week, and it was a fun time, and unfortunately we couldn't answer all of it, but we really went almost 30 minutes over time. So that's fantastic. Okay, so let's dive right in. It's a lot of things that we're going to do here today. Okay, so essentially, when we talk about the session, how we're going to plan the session out is for us to look at principles. As what I mentioned last week, we want to understand principles so that that will change our thinking, and at the end of the day, that will also help us to create the purpose. Okay, wait, let me. Can I have my slides back on? Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Sorry about that. So what I want to do is we want to talk a little bit about principles that will help us to change our thinking. And at the end of the day, that will give us a purpose, the courage to change. And I also want to make it very practical, because I want to teach you a tool so that at the end of the day, you'll be able to, look at ways to apply what you have learned today. So that's essentially what we want to do. So the same principles apply for part 2. And so last week, for those of you who have missed the session, I spoke about the ABCs, and we started off with the A, which is the agility part. And I think that's something that we were looking at from 3 different perspectives. We were looking at our core strengths, how we can create value by leveraging off our core strengths, and we were looking at non-customers, and we were looking at ways to capitalize on the supply chain by exploring 3 tiers of non-customers, and on the 3rd tier, which is the unexplored non-customers, we looked at capitalizing on the supply chain. So that was fantastic, and a lot of you got a lot out of that, and very happy to hear what's happening. And so today we're going to talk about the B and C. So when we talk about the B and C, the B stands for building a robust business model, and the C stands for talking about cash flow. Now, many a times businesses, they have a lot of the cool factor, but they don't have a solid business model. And I think because of what's happening in the COVID situation, many businesses have failed in view of not having a robust business model. It's just like building a house. When there's a storm, if your house doesn't have a solid foundation, strong foundation, what will happen is, it will just break down, and it will just be decimated thanks to the storm. So at the end of the day, we want to build a robust business model, so I'll teach you what it means to build a robust business model using a tool called the Business Model Canvas. Because tools are used to build. So that's why whenever we talk about strategic consulting, we talk about strategy, we want to also learn tools. We also want to see how we can capitalize on these tools so that we can analyze, and we can build, and we can strategize further in developing a wonderful strategy despite or in spite what's happening in the market, in the industry right now. And also we're going to look a little bit on some cash flow. If you are an employee, don't worry about it. These are all very important parts, or rather business topics that you need to know, because at the end of the day, you're working for a business, and at the end of the day, they are looking at all these things. And the more exposed you are to all of this, the more better of an employee you can be, and the more intrapreneurial you can be. So you have entrepreneur, but you are the intrapreneur. You are an entrepreneur within the organization. And if you can contribute, can add value, can solve problems, then I think definitely you are going to be promoted, and so on and so forth. And of course, for entrepreneurs here, this is definitely going to be useful for you as you move forward. So whatever we do in the ABCs is injecting the blue ocean thinking, and so that's essentially what we are talking about today. So business model, right? Now, at the end of the day, when we look at a business model, you know, many a times, a lot of businesses, they have what we call a cool factor. Okay, so many a times when we talk about a robust business, we have businesses that have a lot of cool factor, especially in the gig economy, and you know they create amazing value, but unfortunately they don't have a robust business model. When we talk about having a robust business model, we are looking at first and foremost aligning three propositions: the value, profit, and people proposition. So many a times we think a lot about the customer, which is great, but in any business there are three different stakeholders. Who are the three different stakeholders? Number one, the first stakeholder is the customer, and the second stakeholder is the shareholder. The third stakeholder is the employee. So you have to align the three propositions: the value, profit, and people proposition, in order for you to have a great business model. So value proposition is what you offer to your customer. Profit proposition is what you offer to your shareholders. And people proposition is what you offer to your people, your employees. And the more you align the three, the better, the stronger the business model you can have. And you know, back home in Malaysia, we have a company called Grab. Grab is really like Uber of the world. And Grab, as it started off with the ride-hailing app, and then it went on to food and pretty much like Uber Eats and so on. And we can see that, you know, they have a fantastic value proposition, and it's really cool, and it's helping a lot of people. Unfortunately, when it comes to the profit proposition, it is not as profitable as it should be, and they are relying a lot on investors' funding. People proposition, yeah, it's fantastic, but profitability, how can a company be sustainable when there are no profit proposition? So that's very, very important for us to build a robust business model. So how do we build a robust business model? What are the elements that we need to see? So this is a great opportunity for me to introduce you to a tool. Now, if you look at the business model canvas here, this is an excellent tool to have a preliminary understanding of what essentially the building blocks should be for a business model. So first and foremost, so you have to take all these 9 elements into consideration as if you want to build a solid business model. Now, the first one is the value proposition. What values are you creating for your customer? The second one are the buyers. Who are the people that you're creating value for? When you say buyers, you can consider customers, and what we have learned last week. And the third one, the third building block is relationship, customer relationship. How are you initiating and maintaining the customer relationship? The fourth one is channels. What channels are you using to reach out to your customers and future customers? And the fifth is partnership. Who are the key partners, or rather existing and new partners that you're actually building? Number 6, key activities. What are the main business activities for your existing business? Number 7, what we talked about last week, looking at an inventory of what you have. And now we look at the profit proposition. Number 8, what are the current cost structure of your business? Number 9, what are the revenue streams of your business? These are fantastic elements that you should take into consideration when you build a business model. And this tool helps you to think along these lines and start to ask the right questions. Because if you have, you're starting a new business, this then is fantastic. But if you have an existing business, then you need to answer and what are the existing business, right? And so what we want to look at is the next example. If I were to translate and explain the business model canvas using Uber, right, as an example, when they first started, it will probably look something like this. The first one is that you have your key partners, your drivers, the people that you're recruiting, But more importantly, we start off with your value proposition, right? So you don't need to find and wait for a taxi. Basically, your prices are below taxi fares, easy payment, and so on and so forth. And your activity is definitely defining and creating simple user experience, addressing unique legal requirements, and so on. Your key resources, you have a platform, you have an app to connect people, you have a global press and user, word of mouth, customer relationship, you have rating feedback system, quick response for issues, you have the channels of geographic expansion, internet only ordering, and then you have customer segments, buyer, business travelers, bars and party goers, convenient riders, and so on. And this is the value that you're offering to these people, this customer segment. Now, but what I notice here is the cost structure. You have the phone app development, you have the expansion cost, you have the support, you have to pay for the drivers, and so on. Your revenue stream is only 20%, and pricing multiplier due to peak usage. So when you look at a business model canvas, you can start to analyze and start to see what are some of the positives and what are some of the negatives. So first and foremost, the positives here is great value proposition, very clear focus, and a very big buyer segment, right? Because it's a very cool idea. But what are the negatives? We have very limited revenue streams, but now maybe it's different because we have Uber Eats and so on. And we have very low margins, 20%. We have very high cost structure. And so essentially, when you're building a business model like this, you will see that it's a fantastic, disruptive, cool idea, but it might not be a profitable business. And they're relying a lot on investors and so on. So now, when we start a business, it's very important in Blue Ocean thinking to align value, profit, and people proposition. Okay. Now, this is a slide where if you are going to apply the tool of the business model canvas, you need to ask these questions, right, for the 9 building blocks. And you can take a picture of this slide and you can ask yourself, right, in terms of your business. I won't go through all the questions in the interest of time. But let's say when we talk about value proposition, these are very amazing questions that you have to ask yourself, reflective questions that you have to ask yourself when developing a great business model. For example, what value are we delivering to your customers? Which one of the customers' problems are we helping to solve? What bundles or products and services are we offering to each customer segment? Which customer needs are we satisfying? So these are all questions that you have to answer when building a robust business model. Then you go to the second one, like buyer segments. For who are we creating value? What are our most important customers, or who are our most important customers? So these are questions that you have to ask yourself when analyzing. So when you do this, when you analyze it from a value proposition and profit proposition, of course, then and only then you can be a sustainable business, and you can align your team to be a part of your business, and also in terms of their contribution, you can give value and revenue, rewards to them. So that's what a good practice in terms of building a robust business model. So when you have analyzed this, then you start to ask yourself, what are our strengths? What are the weaknesses? What's the opportunities and threats of the business model canvas, of our own business model? And what are the positives? What are the negatives? And ask yourself, am I aligning value, profit, and people proposition for my business? Is there one element that is too heavy? Is there one element that is too little? Is there a gap? Are we doing the right things, or are we asking the right questions? That's very important. So that's the introduction of the tool. So I think it's only fair I give you a good example of what a fantastic business model should look like. All right, so let's go to the men's razor industry. So the men's razor industry is dominated by giants such as Gillette and Schick, and they focus a lot on in terms of competing factors such as safe and smooth razors, and the blades are very expensive. They are widely available in all channels, and they are also the most shoplifted product. And those that in terms of technology, they spend a lot of money in terms of R&D to develop a fantastic product. So you have that differentiator, which is the the cutting edge, space age kind of shavers. But at the same time, you also have the cheaper ones, which are the disposable ones, which Gillette and Schick also produce, and they, unfortunately, they do have a high chance of getting hurt because it's not, well, from my experience, it's not as robust as you would have of that, which is the more higher technology kind of razors. But what's happening? What the problem is, those are very, very expensive. So that's the issue of the industry. And last week, for those of you who were not there last week, we learned about a tool called the 3 tiers of non-customers, which is an essential tool in blue ocean strategy thinking, because you want to go beyond existing demand and you want to look at non-customers. So now from this particular industry, we can see that there are a lot of non-customers, soon to be those non-customers tier 1, where they are waiting to jump ship and they are going through some pain points. If there's a better offering, they are mentally non-customers already. If there's a better offering, they're going to just jump ship. And in this case, the dissatisfied razor users, those are paying so much of money for shave tech they don't need. And they also, if they're using disposable, they're not very happy because the quality is not that high. And we have the refusing non-customers tier 2, those that are saying no, refusing consciously because of certain barriers, limitation, and pain points. In this case, the dry shave users. And once you start shaving using a machine or a dry shaver, you might not want to just use water and so on and so forth. And lastly, those unexplored non-customers never considered by the industry. People will go occasionally to the barbers and even those non-shavers. How can we pivot the business in such a way that what we learned last week, to be agile, to change, to challenge the status quo, and to go after non-customers, but at the same time, aligning value, profit, and people proposition at the same time? So I want to share with you a fantastic example of a company called Dollar Shave. And at this point, before I go on to explain the slides, I would like to just show you a very quick video of Dollar Shave. This is actually a viral video that they produced very early in the early stage of the company. And just have a look at the video, and I will go back to the slide shortly.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis.
And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, and drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you, see you, see you.
All right. Okay. Wasn't that interesting? So what did they do different? Instead of selling razor and razor blades and so on and so forth on retail stores and shopping complexes and so on and so forth, what they have done is they created what we call a Dollar Shave Club, completely changing and revolutionizing the way we buy shave razors. And you can see that you subscribe to a membership, and for $1 a month and right up to 6 and 9, you have different types of cartridges that is sent to your house. and they deliver it right to your doorstep, and it's easy for you to maintain it. And they are doing extremely well because it's a subscription-based model, and you see that for whatever you're paying, you can upgrade, but you get whatever stainless steel blades based on what they have in terms of their plan. And it's very interesting. In the first year of the inception, they sold almost 20 million units, and they had a viral video which we saw just now, 20 million video views, and they have almost 1.1 million monthly sales, and on average, and 62% profit margin. So this is fantastic because not only do they have a fantastic value proposition, but they have a very good profit proposition, and obviously people proposition, not just in terms of employees, but in terms of new customers, non-customers, and offering something that is tremendous, addressing industry pain points and creating a blue ocean here. So from here, you can always take a picture. You can see that the value proposition is they don't have to overpay for fancy brand name shave tag anymore. To the customer, they are not going to forget to buy their blades because it's delivered to your doorstep. They provide their customers high quality products while saving money, and it delivers razor blade on a monthly basis. Buyer segments are men who don't have time to go shopping, and it's delivered right to your doorstep. Companies primarily market its product to men, but approximately 20% of its customers are women, also non-customers. And they have a fantastic relationship that they build with their so-called club members, and in terms of providing a better service, better products, and a more affordable price. They go through different channels like websites, social media, e-cards, help centers, and so on. Key activities, obviously, fulfilling the production, storing and sending over, social media, e-commerce. And what I like here is they have grooming advice. You can call a hotline, and whatever kind of advice you need in terms of shaving or whatever advice that you might need, being embarrassed to ask anybody else, you can just call and just check it out. They work with a lot of partners. Building strong partnership is also very important with venture cap, YouTube, manufacturers, distributors, payment. And what I love about this is they're really leveraging off their core capabilities, which is the product design of the viral video, and they come up with fantastic products. They have over 3.2 million subscribers. They're leveraging that further. They have 3 plans, 1, 6, and 9 per month. Each subscription is up to 3 years. They also sell related accessories, other grooming products. So it's a fantastic model here. It's a clear value proposition, multiple channels. The buyer segments are men, which is fantastic. They can expand further, of course. Constant engagement with customers, focused activities, strong partnership, great core capabilities, strength and resources, low cost structure, multiple revenue streams. And that is why this company is having over about $300 to $400 million worth of revenue, and they're valued at $1 billion. They're profitable from day one. It's a cool idea, it's profitable, and there's fantastic people proposition. And that's what I mean by creating a great value profit and people proposition, and building a robust business model. They've also come up with other products like this. So interesting, wet wipes just for men. So reflect. One of the key takeaways today is what are some of our strengths and weakness in your own company's business model. What are some key strategic partnerships that you need to form? How can you hunt as a pack, especially in this current COVID situation? What product and service bundling can you do, like what Dollar Shave has done? And how can you build new revenue streams as we face our current situation in the world? And that's essentially the B, right, of ABCs. Now I'll talk about C, but before I go into C, the cash flow part, I just want to essentially maybe stop here and conduct a poll. And I want to ask, what are some of the biggest lessons you have learned during this season? So we have essentially leading change in crisis, innovating and pivoting the business, creating new channels and customer experience, cash management, and no idea. So let's take a poll right now. And I think before I go into the last part of the C, which can be quite quick, and I can touch on that right before we end. Perhaps I can get Zawahir back to facilitate our Q&A, so that we can capture and we can catch more questions and manage our time a little better. So the answers to the poll here, a lot of you are. This is great. The lessons that you have learned during this season, majority of you are talking about innovating and pivoting the business. Fantastic. And the second one was creating new channels, customer experience. Great. Fantastic. We're definitely talking to the right crowd. And lastly, leading change, and only 2% have no idea. So that's fine. So Zawahir, if you're there, let's take some questions and let's talk about some stuff first, so that we can internalize, and then we can last point of a bit on cash flow, and then
Thank you, Dr. Raj.
So are you there? I don't see you.
Yes, I'm there.
Yes.
So thank you, Dr. Raj, for the part 2 of the series and some fantastic examples. So let me request all the participants out there, if you can post your questions on the Q&A section and not in the public chat where you are currently. I'll take the first question, Dr. Raj. Maria has a question. When you touched on the razors, I believe Gillette also did an advert on what defines a man, which was a risky
I can't hear
advertisement. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Hello? Raj, can you hear me?
Don't see Zara here. Let's have the questions coming in the Q&A part. And
Raj, I hope you can hear me. I'm reading out the question for you.
I know you have some points that you brought up in terms of Q&A in the chat room, but if you can bring it up in the Q&A part. Yeah, there you go, Zawahir. Are you there?
Oh, yes, I'm there. So let me repeat the question. Yeah, when you touched on razors, that's a question from Maria. I believe Gillette also did an advert on what defines a man, which was a risky advertisement, and divided the market because they touched on a lot of sensitive topics like masculinity. How do you know? So her question is, how do you know when to take a calculated risk? How to go about it, and when should you recommend this market strategy?
Well, I think I'm not too sure about the Gillette advertisement per se, but I would say that they are now offering, like Dollar Shave is offering a fantastic value for men. I don't think it's anything wrong in terms of creating a product that is, just for men in terms of current scenario, because I think a lot of men, I guess, would love the fact that you have the shavers and the cartridges delivered to your home. So that's why they're very clear in creating a non-customers group that has been underserved and unserved in the market. Because actually Gillette's major customer is the women segment. So how to, I think the calculated risk is, if you're creating value for a particular group of people, then it's fine, right? I don't think, I'm not sure if there's such a huge risk in selling men's product.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. Can we take more questions?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure. I'm waiting for the other questions to come in.
You can ask me questions from last week as well.
Yeah, sure. So we have another one from Richmond, which is, would the slides be shared? See, Richmond, I can answer this question. For those who have attended this webinar, the recorded session of this webinar will go to all the participants, which would obviously have the entire session covered. And we also have the both part 1 and part 2 of the series live streamed on Facebook, on the Westwood Facebook page, and you can always go back to that, Richmond, and keep yourself updated. Hope that answers your question. Any more, please? You're welcome. We have a question from Anthony, which is again, yeah, recording part. Yes, that will be shared anyway, so I don't think it is specific to the webinar part series.
Wow, looks like last week we had more.
Yeah, maybe we should go back to last week's
question
and pick all those unanswered questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions out there? How many participants we have today?
We have more than last week. There are a few who didn't attend the part 1 series and have joined here. Okay, I have a question from Alicia. I've noticed recently that brands are sponsoring YouTubers and giving them cars and other valuable items to their name out there, but I have seen how these brands are being manipulated and used for the influencers' gain. Should the brand continue this form, or should any brand continue this form of advertisement?
I think first and foremost, that's a good question. So first and foremost, there must be a solid value proposition. There must be a real good product or service. And if you want to get more people to notice that through influencers, is fine. At the end of the day, the integrity part comes to where you must have a product that is solid, and it's definitely solving a problem. It's like Dollar Shave, and in fact, when they first started, they didn't have a budget, and that's when they created this viral video. And so at the end of the day, I think you must have a solid product, and you can use different influencers, but it should not be any form of manipulation. So I'm not really sure what do you mean by manipulation, but because if you have a brand, you stand for a product, and you stand for a service, you stand for your values, and that should be what is communicated via the influencers, and should not be manipulated in any form of or way. Yeah, we have another ethical question here.
Arale, to answer your question, yes, the recorded session will come to you by email. We have a question from Nakor. In a market full of unethical practice and where value means different things to different customers, some companies offer cash gifts to close deals. How do we stand different amidst all these talks on business and unethical practices?
I'm not. I mean, again, I'm not an ethical. I'm an ethical person, and I think that integrity is important. But I'm not a what we call a consultant on ethics for a company. But at the end of the day, I think integrity is very important in business. What you promise to the customer, your value proposition, must be delivered. I think that's, at the end of the day, that's the most important thing that you need to do. And you must communicate what is your exact value proposition. That's why when you do the business model canvas, when we ask ourselves, what are our value proposition? Because there are many businesses out there that claim and make promises that is your value proposition, but in actual fact, the product delivered or the product service delivered is totally a far cry from what was promised. So when you define your value proposition, it has to be what is delivered, and not just what you want people to think you are. So that's very, very important.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. Richmond has a question again. What are the important points to look for when building a minimum viable product?
Well, the most important thing for you to look for is first and foremost, you got to ensure that the product is solving a pain point, and the product is really solving a problem in the industry. And when you create that, I think some of the things that you need to look out for is to start small and make sure it's working, make sure it's working well, and then you can scale. Because at the end of the day, you need to challenge all your assumptions, you need to manage and mitigate your risk, and those are the most important thing that you need to look at. And so I think first and foremost, you got to things that you need to look out for is it's got to be working. Secondly, it's got to be scalable, and and at the end of the day, you must deliver what you have promised.
Thank you. Your slide, that's from Richmond again. Your slide on Uber and comment on Grab suggested the margins are low. What is the best way to reverse this and still keep the product alive?
Well, at the end of the day, I think you got to go back to your strength, and you got to look at revenue streams. How can you capitalize and increase revenue stream? Maybe data, maybe you can look at like now they're doing Uber Eats, Grab Eats, and so on. Maybe they could be merchandise, maybe they could be partnering with other partners, creating more value, working with caterers. So there are many different models that you can look at, but the idea is to brainstorm and to see how you can increase your revenue, and also how you can reduce your cost structure. How can you mitigate the cost structure? Because at the end of the day, if you're running on very thin margins, which most gig companies are doing, then they are definitely in danger, because cost structures definitely will change. And I think you need to start to be profitable from day one.
Thank you. Dr. Raj, the next question you may not see here. Before I take Alicia's next question, we have a question from Ahmed Nabil on Facebook, who there are a lot of participants attending the live stream on Facebook. So Ahmed Nabil's question is, how should value proposition during current pandemic change and react to current market circumstances?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's when I think last week we talked a lot about this, about agility, to pivot your business, to look at how you can transform your business by looking at your strengths, your core strengths. We talked about the distilleries that they are pivoting their business towards making sanitizers. We talked about how companies like Lego have constantly pivot the channels throughout over 100 years. We talked about how some companies are pivoting the product, some companies are not, who don't pivot the product, actually are pivoting the experience, right? By creating a different experience, like the gym, online gyms and so on. So at the end of the day, you got to look at your core strengths. You got to look at your, do an inventory of what you're good at, your resources, your process, and then start to look at non-customers, the people that you've never considered before, and how you can offer new product and new services or new experience to them.
Sure, thank you. More questions, please. We have another 15 minutes. Dr. Raj, do you want to look at any of the polls that, or was that done? All the polls you wanted to conduct?
Yeah. Yes, because the last one was for the cash flow.
Yeah, okay.
I will do that right after that. Maybe we'll take a couple of questions and I'll go
into
no problem.
Content. Yeah. So maybe you can go to the last part then while we wait for the other questions to come in.
I think there were 2 questions that came in. Alicia, right?
Yeah, I think Alicia was like making a point there. Yeah,
oh, okay.
I don't think that is. Yeah, but I can read that out. They will just talk about the company for 2 minutes and then make their own video revolving around who they are gifting the car to, and that takes away from the brand. Everyone sees this as a generosity of the YouTubers, so it really surprises me that brands continue this sort of advertisement, and well, I suppose any publicity is good. Anthony, again, the sessions part 1 and 2 are very, really awesome, inciting and revealing. So Dr. Raj, that's a compliment for you. Have read the first book, Blue Ocean Strategy, but not this latest one. I guess it is the shift that he's referring to. My question is, can these templates or frameworks adopted in the case studies be applicable to a developing economy environment, the third world to be specific, and an economy where no real data can be acquired, corruption pervade and poor infrastructure is the order of the day. Anthony, do you want to say which part of the world you're referring to when you say developing world? And that's the question for you, Dr. Raj. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question, right? And I think at the end of the day, the blue ocean strategy, or rather blue ocean shift that we are talking about, the latest one, definitely is applicable in developing country, right? In Africa, you mentioned, and I think it is not just for developed country, because in developing country we have a lot of non-customers. We also need to come up with a very a business model that it's very sustainable, looking at value, profit, and people proposition. It doesn't have to be high tech. For example, in Kenya, there is a blue ocean called M-Pesa, and M-Pesa is a fantastic payment kind of arrangement that is, you can use even a non-smartphone as well to make to transmit cash, to transmit money across geographical barriers. You can look at ways where you can make remittance and so on, pay with your phone, and that is from in Africa, and so it can be done. And as long, I'm sure you can get, if you can't get data, you definitely can get insights by talking to people, by interviewing, and so on. And infrastructure is irregardless. So I just gave you a very good example of M-Pesa and using the existing infrastructure and still being able to create blue oceans. So the answer is a big yes.
Thank you. We have any more questions? Okay, I'm taking a question from the public chat.
Sure.
Is there any, that's from Slimani. Is there any special aspects we need to consider when applying BMC for small business and big businesses? I mean, any difference when applying BMC between big and small businesses, especially for startup firms?
I think the BMC is it's an initial start. Just it's a collaboration tool. It's not the end all. It's not the complete, or rather the most. You don't stop there. It's a way to start there. So I think it's a starting tool. It's a collaboration tool. So whether it's small, big, we have done the BMC exercise with big companies. We have done the BMC exercise with small companies. We have. It's a very good place to start. It's a very good place to ask the right questions, regardless of the size of the company. And it's it's a starting point to many things. So once you have discussed and aligned the thoughts and aligned the value, profit, and people proposition, then you have to go deeper into it. You don't stop there. You have to go deeper into elements of, let's say, channels. You got to go deep into the discussion. So what I'm trying to say is the BMC is a good starting point to get everyone on the same page.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I can't see any more questions here at the moment.
Okay.
So maybe we can go to the last part and then probably take.
Yeah. So the last part is where I really want to talk a little bit to the entrepreneurs here. And the last part is cash flow. And at the end of the day, I think the most important thing in any business is cash flow. And a lot of times companies today are facing a challenge because they can't operate the business in a normal circumstance, and because of the lockdown and for 3 months, and so on. And if you're a business that you have good cash flow for between 3 to 6 months, then you're able to survive and come back, because the time perspective is where you are able to withstand the storm, and then you can come back again. But if you don't, then that's where you start to shrivel and you start to have issues. So I think for the entrepreneurs, one of the things that I would like to ask, I'm very curious to know, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're owner of the business, how much cash reserve do you think you have? Almost finished, 3 months, 6 months, because if you're 3 months, we have had about 3 months lockdown, it's going to be tough on you. If you're 6 months, fantastic, on the right track. If you're almost finished, this is the time where you got to think of very creative ways to sustain the business, because many a times it's not just about the issue in the industry per se, but it's about how long can you withstand, or how long can you go through the storm. So from the poll, I can see that it's almost equal. It's 3 months, 6 months. SMEs and bigger companies probably have a longer time frame, but I can understand that many of you are some of you almost finished. So there are some tips here that you can think about, because time is always either your friend or enemy. And so capitalize on facilities that the government or banks are doing. So first and foremost, you can always go to the bank or government and find out what are some facilities. When I say facilities, some products or some moratoriums, or maybe you can even renegotiate some loans and so on during this period. And that's what I think in our government, they are giving like a 6 months interest free, or we don't have to pay back the bank for the next 6 months. We call this the moratoriums, and these are some of the things you got to look out for. Renegotiate cost items, like rent and so on. This is great opportunity, sometimes a blessing in disguise, for you to renegotiate a lot of cost items, especially like your rent and other things that you're buying, you're supplying. Renegotiate it right now. Think about how you can create smart value based on discounts to close deals. So this is where you want to create a win-win. So your customers, look for all those customers that are cash rich, who have a longer time perspective, who have a longer cash flow runway, and think of how you can benefit them and how you can work with them. For example, giving them discounts, and if they pay upfront certain amount, I know you could give them 20% off, for example, if they pay in full, or something like that, or pay 50% upfront. So these are some of the things that you need to start to look at, and quickly start negotiating, quickly start taking proactive measures to create smart value based discount. I was working, we were just talking to some hotels, and we were encouraging them to sell rooms upfront. So which means contact all the previous customers that have stayed in your hotel, and if they have loved your hotel, they've given you a great review, ask them to come back again, maybe not now, but maybe next year, but they can buy the room with 30%, 40% discount. So this is all to generate cash, to keep yourself afloat, and to make time your friend and not your enemy, so that you can weather the storm, because the storm will never last at the end of the day, and you just need to make time. All right. And lastly, eliminate cold spots. So cold spots are items that takes up a lot of resources but don't really have impact on your top line revenue, and eliminate it or reduce it significantly. Okay. And think about ways where you can focus on what's urgent and important. Do it now. Those that are not urgent and important, then just plan it and just delay. Think about it in the next 6 months. If it's urgent and not important, delay it. If it's not urgent, not important, drop it. So this is a time for you to also eliminate. Stop doing what you've been doing. This is a great opportunity to do so. If it's not adding any value, or it's not helping you in your top line. So rethink your pricing. I think you can drop your pricing a little bit now, and so that you can create value and give some discounts, right? And focus on what's urgent and important. So these are all some tips that I think, in the interest of time, I am just touching on this, because I feel that cash flow management is something that's very, very important. And in view of that, I think you should think about how you can buy as much time as you can. All right, so let me just talk a little bit on this slide here. I just want to sort of end, and we can take a few more questions, but I just want to end with by saying that it's not the strongest species that survive, and this is Darwin's theory, right? Not the most intelligent, but the one that's most adaptable to change. So if you look at all this strategic move and understanding of previous blue oceans, they all have been created when there was some form of major recessions. And there's always a blue ocean opportunity that comes out of that. So if you get your ABCs right and you're agile, you have a good business model, and you manage your cash flow well, you'll be able to weather the storm and maybe even thrive and maybe even create a blue ocean in this process. So yeah, hope you prosper along the way. So let's take some questions. I mean, if you have, if not, then maybe, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. Yes, we have a couple of questions. One from Vijay Doriraj, which you may not be able to see there because it's on Facebook Live. Hi, Dr. Raj. Thanks for another enlightening session. In case of a startup, do you suggest hiring a consultant for drawing up a strategic plan, or should the CEO, with his own flow of thought and plan? Should a CEO see it as a value add or intangible in terms of benefits?
You know, every great startup, they always have an advisor and they always have a consultant. Even when Mark Zuckerberg started Facebook, he had a consultant, he had an advisor. And so I think I would say yes, definitely, because not taking away anything from the CEO, but it's just like a sounding board, is to look at a different perspective. It is to challenge assumptions, is to challenge certain assumptions that the CEO might take, or maybe even there could be some myopic perspective that needs to be further discussed, further challenged. So it only gets better. And if there is a sounding board, there is a consultant, there's an advisor, we only make the business better. And it's not to tear it down, but it's to build it up. So my answer to that is a big yes. You need a third perspective always.
Thank you. Next question we have from Syed Muazzam. How will the digital transformation affect traditional practices in events or exhibition industry due to social distancing and customers' complex purchasing behavior? How do we mitigate the risk and do analysis on adapting the resilience business model?
Yeah, so for events, right? You mentioned events.
Events, yes. You mentioned events and exhibition, yeah.
Exhibition, yeah, fantastic. So at the end of the day, it's what we are having is physical distancing. We don't want to have social distancing because we still can be socially connected, and technologies can help us to do that in so many different ways. Now we have augmented realities, we have virtual realities. We have so many technologies that can help us to still be able to run, whether it's a hybrid of an event or whether it's completely online, or even the physical events will definitely come back. But my point is, how can you remove the pain points and the fear points of the customer so that they can come to your event without having any form of fear and having total confidence that everything is properly sanitized, everything is properly done. There's no need to have any form of touch points, but it's a seamless experience, and using technology. So that's what I think the airlines are trying to do again, and they are creating experiences where we don't have paper, it's paperless. You don't have to touch anything, and it's seamless, and it's completely hygienic, and it's hygienic, and it's completely sanitized. Then you can do that. So let's say if you have an event, it must be seamless. People must be able to come in and out and have some form of physical distancing, and you can still run those events, whether it's completely online, completely face-to-face, or a hybrid model in between.
Thank you. We have two more questions in the queue, and I haven't checked on Facebook yet. How many more questions can we take, Dr. Raj?
You can do it.
We have two in the queue, yeah. So Alicia, again, in the current scenario, how do you think the aviation industry can use the blue ocean strategy? They've been impacted the most or pretty badly.
Oh yeah, I think at the end of the day, as I mentioned just now, the aviation industry should remove pain points and what I like to call fear points. So fear points are points where people are afraid of getting infected and so on, until we find a vaccine. So what we want to do in Blue Ocean strategy is always about creating an exceptional value in terms of the buyer experience cycle, whether it's customer or non-customer, removing the pain points. So, in the past, in the aviation industry, or rather when you take a flight, you have to be there like 3-4 hours. But why don't we change that? Why don't we create an environment where, you could check in from home and you can, you can do that now, but what I'm saying is you can do more things, right? And you can just have a seamless experience. Even the security checks can be seamless, can have not many touch points, and while maintaining security, but maybe collecting your meals up front, and then just going on the plane. And maybe on the plane we don't have business and economy anymore, but everyone have their own so-called like a private cubicle or something to the effect. The idea is to reimagine the business, to reimagine the entire buyer's experience. And that's really Blue Ocean thinking, because you want to remove the pain points, or in this case, the fear points, so that you can create exceptional value. And the airline that does that first, the airport that does that first, will be a game changer.
Thank you. I'm not sure, Dr. Raj, if you have followed this news. The president of Emirates Airlines last week made a statement. He said it's going to be summer 2021 when they come back to absolute normalcy. And he said, provided in the first quarter of 2021, the vaccine is officially out. So that's looking really bad.
I would challenge that. In fact, if anyone can pass the message to the CEO, he should stop that kind of thinking, because he should be ready to not put the entire company's future on whether they find or not find the vaccine, but you should be able to create an environment where people can be completely safe. And I think if people feel safe, they know that even if there's no vaccine, they can still ensure that they are safe. And that's what we're doing, right? I mean, like life has to go on. Like in Malaysia, we can't say, okay, the whole country is going to be locked down until we find a vaccine. Everybody will be dead by then, and I think businesses will just die off, and there will be a complete catastrophe. So the first thing we need to do is change that. While he's saying that, I mean, all due respect to him, but the Singapore Airlines chief executives are saying the complete opposite. They're saying we are ready to take customers. You look at their videos, they're talking about we are completely transforming the entire experience using technology. It's going to be safe. Come fly with us today, tomorrow.
I think I think that's an extended answer to Vijay's question earlier. Can the CEO do it all alone? No, they need a consultant. So you have to pitch in there, Dr. Raj, our UCSI consulting group for Emirates Airlines. Hopefully. We have a question from Johnson. Do you think that creating a website for a company can help the companies? Yeah. If yes, how?
So anyone from Emirates, we would love to work with.
I think we have covered pretty much all questions. So thank you, everyone. I hope you had a great experience going through the two-part series. On behalf of Westford University College, let me thank all the participants for sparing your valuable time to go through the two-part series. Thank you again to Dr. Raj for enlightening us with the Blue Ocean Shift Masterclass two-part series that we hosted. You'll all get an email with the recorded session, and I hope during the pandemic you would be able to apply some of these lessons, pass on some of the great ideas that were inspiring to your respective companies, and some of you who own your own companies, good luck. And looking forward to see you for the forthcoming webinar series. Thank you very much to all of you for your valuable time.